Dear viewers, you are most welcome to my analyzing and explanatory channel NAGA World Conflict Zone. Today's matters how US tensions with Russia and China could impact on Middle East. Iran and Turkey are riding this wave of global exertion with US hegemony. They also want to invade states in the Middle East and supplant US allies, partners, and influences. The US is the midst of growing tension with both Russia and China, two countries that its national defense strategy sees as near peer rival in the world. In a sense, the US has created a self-fulfilling prophecy in the regard, putting a national strategy openly in place that views these countries as a global problem and then ending up having a problem with them. Recently revealed documents showed that US concern date back to 2018 when the Pentagon said China is a strategic competitor using predatory economic to intimidate its neighbors while militarizing features in the South China Sea. Russia has violated the border of nearby nations and pursues veto power over the economic, diplomatic, and security decisions of its neighbors. This is the threatening the global order, Washington's claim. Now, the new US administration is making good on promises to be tough on Moscow and Beijing. President Joe Biden slammed Russia's president last week. The Russian embassy in Washington then mocked the US by noting that it is receiving letters expressing support for US Russia relation when Americans apologized for Washington's ill considered moves toward Moscow. Biden attacking Russian President Vladimir Putin by calling him a killer isn't the only issue facing DC, District of Columbia. The US also went to a high-level meeting with China in Alaska. US-Russia ties are meanwhile at their most difficult point since the fall of the Soviet Union, CNN noted. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken spoke of deep concern he had picked up about China's behavior during a tour of Asia and condemned Beijing for breaking rules that keep at bay a more violent world. According to CNN, National Security Advisor Jack Sullivan also slammed China as well. Is that the way that you had hoped to conduct this dialogue? Chinese diplomat Yok Jerry asked, well, I think we thought too well of the US. While the tough stance is getting applauses in the US, the world order may be affected by this spread. China, Russia, Iran, and Turkey are increasing working in concert to undermine the US wherever it has influence, and they work in different ways. China is building up a massive navy that can challenge the US in the Pacific. It is also sponging up the concentration to traditional US partners in the Middle East also. The US is concerned about China's investment across the region as well as in Africa, South America, and also Europe. It appears that countries like Germany are moving close to the China-Russia orbit and are tired of US lectures about things like Nord Stream related German and Russia. All Beijing and Moscow have to do in these areas is spry away a few deals, not support Washington's. A port here and a pipelines there are how Russia and China are slowly pushing the US back. They know the US has huge infrastructural problem at home and that the ripple effect of the pandemic continues to cause chaos in the West. Iran and Turkey are riding the global exertions of US hegemony. They also want to invade states in the Middle East and supplant US allies, partners, and influencers. Both are active in Africa as well, and they want increased rail and highway link with Russia and China. The larger picture is that these tensions affect Israel during the Cold War. The Middle East was partly divided between pro-US states and Soviet armed states. The Soviet ones armed Syria, Iraq, and Egypt, whereas the US had closer alliances with Shah's Iran until 1979, as well as Saudi Arabia and Turkey. Turkey was a real NATO ally. In those days, however, things changed with the Islamic Revolution in Iran. The rise of fundamentalist extremism, the drift of Turkey towards Russia, and changing the fortune in the region. Although Egypt chose to become the part of the US orbit in the region and America invades Iraq, the overall picture is of declining US influence. The US is tired of endless war and it looks like Iran, Turkey, and China will capitalize on America's exit from Afghanistan. The end of the Cold War brought US hegemony to the Middle East, symbolized by the huge US-led coalition against Saddam Hussein in 1991 and the rapid way America's prosecutions of the war destroyed Saddam's Soviet doctrine army. However, that brief US success was quickly eroded by terrorism. Now it has lost out in some areas. Iran has grabbed up Lebanon, Yemen, Iraq, and Syria. US allies in the Gulf are seeking a lower profile. Israel is working with Greek and the Gulf. The Obama administrations ended up trying to keep Israel from the Gulf using John Kerry and import Iran. Jerusalem has more support from Washington's today. However, that support comes at a difficult time because of the rise of Iran in the region and the new Turkey-Iran-Russia partnerships. Israel has amicable relations with Russia and China, unlike the US. American pressures on Israel seek to reduce the Jewish state's relations with China. Defense Ministry. Benny Gantz raised eyebrow for critiquing Biden's comment on Putin. That is because some expect Israel to do what Washington's want in relation with Russia and China. But Israel's choices are more complex now. In this phase of the Iranian threat, Russia and China matters. They also matters economically, partially due to Russia's role in Syria. Although Turkey and Israel technically have relations, Ankara has sought to prevent Jerusalem's relation with Gulf and Kosovo also. This means Israel is rapidly increasing ties with Greece and the Gulf as well as with countries like India. But Israel wants a positive relationships with Moscow and Beijing, not an adversarial one. It also wants to make sure that its strategic and defense partnership with the US, which increasingly means defense ties on numerous levels, remains intact as Washington ups the rhetoric with China US commentaries, especially among pro-Israel voices that are linked to the US national security establishments, have warned about Israel-China ties for years. Much of this is exaggerated, portraying Israel as running into the arms of China. But the overall message is clear. They want Israel to stress that it is being colder to the Asian superpower. Israel is treading carefully on these demands. Similarly, on Russia, Israel tread carefully. It has been in this complex scenario before, such as when Russia fought a war with Georgia in 2008, when Israel had good relation with Tbilisi. In addition, Ukraine has sought better ties with Jerusalem, and Russia and Ukraine are locked in a dispute over Crimea and the Donbass. Israel doesn't want to take sides in any of these, but since 2015, when Moscow increased its role in Syria's civil war, Israel has worked with the Kremlin to discuss Syria. The larger context of the current US anger with Moscow and Beijing may end with Russia, China, Iran, and Turkey all calling America's bluff. In a sense, asserting their roles in a new multipolar world. This has already been happening quietly. In 2019, there was the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in Bishkek, and then the next day, the Conference on Interaction and Confidence Building Measures in Asia, CICA. Putin and Chinese President Xi Jinping met with leaders of Central Asian states as well as India and Pakistan to discuss regional and global issues. They adopted the Bishkek Declaration that sought to emphasize the need to fight three forces of evil, including separatism, terrorism, and extremism. The countries said they were working to challenge cross-border crime and build a multipolar world order. That last part is what matters. They want a multipolar world. Russia, Iran, and Turkey work together on Syria through the Astana process as part of this. In each case, the US is not invited. Israel also is often not invited to this forum and other countries in the Middle East. In short, the multipolar world is already here. It is just a matter of time before the rising countries seek to force the US a hand on this issue. Like all changes in power, there could be a peaceful transition, such as when Britain ceased to be a global empire in the 1960s, or there could be a major confrontation. Israel will find itself in the middle if it is not careful. So, in this scenario, when multipolarization will be happened in Middle East, then who will lead the Middle East? Because after Second World War, America itself leads Middle East for a long time. So hopefully world is hoping that in future China will lead whole world like America. So dear viewers, if my explanatory and analytical news is liked by you, please subscribe my channel and ring the bell button. Bye bye.